With the first round of the playoffs done, the Niners would start their journey to the Super Bowl. But for many, there was one question that Brock Purdy hadn't answered, and it was beginning to look like he never would.
We have 4 games this week. That means we have 8 quarterbacks, 7 terrific quarterbacks, and Brock Purdy. I simply don't put him in the same category as the other quarterback.
When I was creating the schedule for this season, I couldn't wait to get to this episode. And the reason is simple and maybe a little petty. I couldn't wait to get to this episode because there are 2 games many members of the media would love to forget. But before that, let's take a trip back to when this question was asked.
Are you confident that if the Niners, by some chance, are trailing in the second half of a playoff game, that Purdy won't melt down?
See, this question was asked right after Purdy had achieved his perfect passer rating against the Bucs, who made it to the playoffs. This, of course, was 2 weeks before they would go on to destroy the Eagles, who made it to the playoffs. The final score of that game was 42-19, and that was 8 weeks after they had a similar score against the Cowboys, who made it to the playoffs. Of course, this was during their 5-game win streak, and during that stretch, they also defeated the LA Rams, who made it to the playoffs. That was 4 of the teams that the Niners had already beaten during their regular season, and they only had 2 left to face. You see, the Packers were coming off an impressive win against the Cowboys, and the Niners were coming off the bye they had earned by earning the number 1 seed. One concern many fans had was that most of the stars hadn't played a snap of football since week 17. No one knew if rust would play a factor. What did play a factor, though, when the game began, was the rain. In what would become an ongoing criticism against Purdy, he did, admittedly, struggle in the rain. It happened during the Browns game during week 6, and it would appear to affect him in this game as well. And while the weather wasn't ideal, what was even worse was the fact that in the first quarter, Deebo Samuel would go down with a shoulder injury and he wouldn't come back into the game. Despite Deebo going down, Purdy would still manage to find Kittle in the second quarter with a beautiful throw to take the lead. They would lose the lead after the Packers were able to score twice in the third quarter, including a 2-point conversion to go up 21-14. After that, the Niners were able to get a field goal in the fourth quarter, and they would close the gap and make the game 21-17. Up to this point, Purdy had been inaccurate on a lot of his throws, and whether or not that had to do with the weather, or in some cases receivers running the wrong routes, it didn't matter. All of that had to be wiped clean when it came to the final drive. There was 0 room for errors. 12 plays, 7 throws, 5 runs. And of those 5 runs, the final 2 would be the most important. For the entire season, Purdy's ability to scramble out of the pocket when a play would break down would go virtually unnoticed. And in that moment, when the game was on the line, Purdy would make the choice to put the team on his back and get them within 5 yards of the goal, which of course would then set up McCaffrey for the final touchdown of the game, giving the Niners the lead 21-24. This left the Packers a minute left to get into field goal range to tie the game. And for all of the talk about Purdy's almost interceptions, the interception that the media didn't really want to talk about was Jordan Love's game-losing interception when he made the choice to throw the ball back across his body, resulting in Dre Greenlaw getting his second interception of the game. And this is where I have a problem with how people treated this game. No matter what happened at the end, where one quarterback won the game for his team and the other threw the interception that lost the game for his team, the main thing that people talked about was how bad Brock Purdy played for the first 3 quarters of the game.
James Jones, were you impressed by Brock Purdy and the Niners win?
You know, I'm gonna try not to come across as a hater. You know what I mean?
Try hard.
Because they did.
Be honest.
They did win the game.
Be honest.
No, he did not impress me at all. At all, right?
Oh.
Yes, they won the football game. Yes, you usually tend to win football games when the other team makes mistakes. Yes, right? The Packers, young football team, made mistakes, right? 2 of the best 2 throws Brock Purdy threw to us. Right? We just didn't catch him. If you truly ask me, Brock Purdy for 3.5 quarters was the worst player on the field.
So I watched that game where he did everything I asked him to do at the end, and I came away from it saying, yeah, he's the reason they can't win a Super Bowl. What would it take for me to believe the Niners can win the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy? For that, I need to see at least one real comeback victory. Yeah. I would have thought.
That was one.
Yeah.
Now, I remember also
I'm as shocked
asking
as
you,
anybody.
going into a game, I remember asking you, if Brock Purdy played great throughout the game, you know, like he has many times and they win, would you be more impressed with that? Or if he played poorly and then when it was time, they needed a drive to win it, he delivered the drive. Which one would you be more impressed with? You said the drive.
Yeah.
And that was when I fully realized that no matter what Purdy did, he would never get the respect he had earned from certain media personalities. Even Undisputed wasn't immune to it.
First of all, Skip, you lead in by saying a comeback. Oh, the comeback. Was it really truly a comeback?
Yes.
I mean, in the end, they start the fourth quarter by 7 points. They kick a field goal, so it's really 4. If you really want to call it a comeback. When we all start talking about the San Francisco 49ers being able to come from behind, we're not talking about a 4-point come from behind situation. We're talking about double-digit deficit. I'm talking about 10 points, 12. But that's okay. A win is a win is a win, no matter how you get it. But what I would say is you're dealing with a young team in the Green Bay Packers.
They wanted to see more. They wanted to see Purdy do it from farther behind. They wanted to see it done against a team that wasn't the 7th seed in the playoffs. So, enter the 3-seeded Detroit Lions. What a game. Much like the divisional round, the Niners started off shaky, including a first half interception from Purdy. By the end of the half, it was 24-7. Confession time. I turned the game off at that point. I lay down in bed, ready to go to sleep. And then I got a text from a friend, and everything changed. I got back up, turned on the TV, and suddenly the score was 24-27. I couldn't believe it. So I did what any rational person would do. I rerun the broadcast back to the start of the third quarter to see how it happened. First, I want to start off with this. Luck did play a part in some of this. I won't deny it. But one of the main stories from this game was what was going on with the Lions. Here's the thing though. The mark of a great team is capitalizing on the other team's choices or mistakes. The Lions got to where they were by going for it on 4th down. And for most of the season, it worked and people cheered. In this game, some of those plays didn't work and people booed because the Lions should have gone for the points. Should they have? Sure. But they didn't, and the Niners punished them for those choices. So let's talk about the throw. You know what I'm talking about. Once again, people would talk about the mistake that Purdy made by throwing it, except that play and throw looked awfully familiar. Funny, you know who didn't have a problem with that throw and actually called it the right decision? That's right, Kyle Shanahan.
Ayuk's long catch, and how did that sort of just change things for you guys?
I mean, they had a safety sitting in the middle of the field. Brock did an awesome job recognizing it. We had Debo on a crossing route, and that safety cut it, and Brock made the right read and just launched it. But the corner did an awesome job staying on top. I mean, the safety cuts, and that means there's no one in the middle, but the corner was aware of it, so he stayed on top. I was worried that for it to be a pick when it's like that. Brock makes the right read, but then he launches it, and BA just did a hell of a job going up for it. So it wasn't going to be a pick, and then he came down with the catch, which was huge. I was never able to see whether he was down or not. They said he was, so it's great we punched it in later.
If you look at the trajectory of that ball versus where Ayuk was headed and the speed at which he was going, that is an easy catch for him and most likely would have resulted in the touchdown anyway. But to the defender's credit, he made a good call and was able to get in front of Ayuk to try and make a play for it. Now, I'm not going to talk about the flag. Some people say it would have been DPI, some say there was no foul regardless of whether a catch is made or not, and that the flag was not needed. Either way, after the ball somehow managed to bounce off the face mask of the defender, Ayuk made one of the craziest catches I've ever seen. And just a few plays later, Purdy and Ayuk would show off that connection by once again scoring a touchdown. After another mistake by the Lions, the ball would be fumbled and the Niners would recover. And here we come to the payoff of something I mentioned a few episodes ago. But watch what happens when McCaffrey is tackled. you notice anything? You know, like the player who was immediately there to pick McCaffrey up? Let's see that from a different angle. See, I fully believe that Purdy was trying to catch up to make a block of his own to get McCaffrey into the end zone, and to the relief of many fans, he was a second behind. But the fact that he was the first one down there to pick him up after a 70-yard run was impressive, and it really started to call into question this idea that Purdy didn't know how to run or use his legs. He made the effort to get down the field to help his teammate in any way he could. After getting the ball back, Purdy would make the first of 3 runs to extend the drives that would end up leading to retaking the lead. There is a part of me that wonders though, if Debo hadn't gotten in the way accidentally, would Purdy have made it into the end zone on that run? The world will never know. But what they did know was that Purdy's run would lead to CMC punching it in for the touchdown to tie the game. It would happen again early in the fourth quarter when Purdy would have a smaller run to save the drive, which eventually led to a field goal. The real dagger came late in the fourth quarter when, on 3rd and 4, Purdy would have his biggest run of the night to not only get the first down, but it would allow the Niners to get closer to the end zone to set up a big McCaffrey run and eventually the touchdown by Eli Mitchell. The score was now 24-34. This is what everyone had been waiting for. Could Purdy truly lead his team back from being down in the second half of a game? To answer the question posed from Nick Wright many weeks prior to this game, yes, Purdy proved that he wouldn't melt down if the Niners somehow found themselves behind in a playoff game. This time, there wasn't anything anyone could say to take away from what Purdy had done in this game. Why? Because 48 rushing yards proved that Purdy could, quite literally, put the team on his back and carry them to victory. Yes, McCaffrey and Mitchell got the eventual touchdowns, but they wouldn't have been in that position to do so without those runs, even the second one, because it led to a field goal. This was the point where I said to myself, it doesn't matter what anyone in the media says. Purdy did it. He proved to everyone that said he couldn't do it wrong. The game would end with a final score of 31-34. The Niners, after coming so close last season, were going to the Super Bowl to face the Chiefs. And my favorite part of the whole thing, with the victory against the Packers and the Lions, the Niners had beaten every single NFC team that made it to the playoffs. And at the end of the day, 6 of those terrific quarterbacks would be sitting at home watching Brock Purdy play in his first Super Bowl in only his second season in the NFL. And that's going to do it for this video. If you like this content, drop a like and leave a comment. To stay up to date, click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see ya in the next one.